34-year-old Leonard James Irving lived in Portland, Oregon, in 2011. His family and friends referred to him as LJ. He had 3 children aged 5, 6, and 7 on June 25, 2011. LJ, dressed in a long green shirt and dark jeans, went out to celebrate his nephew's 21st birthday. He had gotten off work at 9:30 p.m. from his produce job at Winco Foods and had to report to his part-time chef's job at the Lloyd Center's Courtyard Marriott by 7 the next morning. However, he told his girlfriend he had to join his nephew at Season & Sports Bar and Lounge on Northeast 82nd Avenue because family was important. Outside the bar after midnight, his nephew Lamar Lovett Hill and another man exchanged angry words, and LJ stepped in to calm the situation. LJ then walked across the street with his nephew to his minivan in the lot of the new Happy Fortune Chinese restaurant. But before they could get in and leave, someone fatally shot LJ 4 times in the back and shot Lamar in the neck, wounding him. Samuel Thompson, who owned the Season & restaurant, said he did not hear the gunfire because he was in the rear lounge where Benson High School alumni were celebrating their 10th reunion. But Thompson knew something was terribly wrong at about 12:30 a.m. when people rushed into his business. Thompson ran across the street and found LJ on his back, his right arm on his chest, beside his van with the driver's door open. Thompson checked to see whether he was breathing and dialed 911 at 12:37 a.m. "I sat down on the ground next to him," Thompson said. LJ's aunt heard that he had possibly been shot and drove to his mother Lucy Mashia's house, and they drove to the crime scene together. It was there that Lucy learned LJ was not alive anymore. "My son was an innocent bystander," she said. "Some coward shot him." LJ's girlfriend, Adrienne Malam, said she thought it was a bad dream at first. She got word while at home where she was caring for LJ's 3 young children and her own 4-year-old daughter. "I kind of cried to myself," Adrienne said. "Why do people do this? Why is it so easy for people to get guns? It is still surreal. I am thinking he could still be at work. Maybe he is not really gone. It's crazy how he can be there one day and not the next. They did not see the guy coming. It really hurts that it was cold-blooded for no reason." LJ grew up in Portland, but spent time during his high school years in Seattle with his dad's family. They described him as a dedicated father who saw his children on his days off and weekends and dreamed of working full-time as a chef. His specialties were spicy foods, prime rib on Christmas, and jambalaya. In 2005, LJ was sentenced in federal court to 60 months in prison for distributing illegal substances and had been on federal supervision since June 2009. "I thought my heart was broken that time," his sister said, but she was proud that LJ took responsibility for his actions and served his time without blaming others. His family said he matured, got his GED, and since his release had worked hard to make ends meet for his children, holding down 2 jobs. Investigators had few leads to work on, and the case unfortunately went cold not long after the investigation started. Then in January 2023, 37-year-old Jan Marcian Polk was arrested in connection with what happened to LJ Irving. Polk had been living in Multnomah County Jail since May 2022 for another case in which he faces similar charges. He has pled not guilty in that case. Portland Police Bureau Chief Chuck Lovell said he was thrilled with the news of the arrest. "I spoke to LJ's mother today, and she passed along her appreciation for the work of the detectives," Lovell said in a statement. "I agree. This arrest is the culmination of almost 12 years of diligent, meticulous work by investigators, and I am grateful to them for their tireless efforts to achieve justice for LJ." A trial date has not yet been made public. Samuel Johnson, who was one of the first people at the crime scene, formerly worked at Self-Enhancement Inc., a nonprofit organization that works with at-risk youth. He left SEI to start his own business, but launched Reclaim in the Village, a personal effort to spur the community to get involved to combat such violence. After Andre Paton, a 19-year-old on his SEI caseload, was fatally shot in Old Town, a case that remains unsolved, he said, "Portland needs to wake up." Thompson said, "At the end of the day, it has to be a call to action. The community needs to start preaching love once again. Too many lives have been taken for nonsense. It needs to be understood that a good man in LJ lost his life. Nancy McKeevers came into the world on October 16, 1954, in Portland, Oregon. She was born to proud parents, Henry Carl Pepper and Lenore Pepper. Nancy was the middle child in her family, having an older sister named Janet and a younger sister named Diane. From an early age, Nancy played a crucial role in keeping her family close-knit and harmonious. Her sisters fondly remember her as the peacemaker, possessing a heart brimming with love and a laid-back personality that strengthened their bond. Nancy's educational journey led her to Reynolds High School, where she excelled both academically and socially. With big dreams and a promising future ahead, she decided to pursue higher education at the esteemed Oregon State University. As she pursued her dreams, fate intervened in the form of Randall, the love of her life. The exact details of their initial meeting remain shrouded in mystery, but it quickly became apparent that their love story was destined to unfold. The couple tied the knot and settled in the peaceful city of Tigard, Oregon, where they soon welcomed their bundle of joy, baby Ross, around 1982, completing their idyllic family picture. However, as life often does, it took an unexpected turn. On the bleak winter morning of January 2, 1983, tragedy struck the tranquil suburb of Tigard. A frantic call reached the local sheriff's office, with Randall, Nancy's husband, reporting a devastating incident. His wife had taken her own life. Deputies sprang into action, racing to the couple's residence to assess the situation. What they encountered upon arrival sent shivers down their spines. Nancy lay lifeless on the floor, a gunshot wound to her head, with a Smith & Wesson revolver nearby, the apparent instrument of her demise. Randall stood nearby, visibly distraught, with their young son at his side. The deputies wasted no time and rushed Nancy to the nearest hospital, but their efforts were in vain. Despite their best attempts, she was declared dead. As investigators sought answers, they turned to Randall for an explanation. His account of the events was initially perplexing. He claimed there had been a struggle over the gun, with him attempting to wrest it from Nancy before it was too late. However, as the investigation unfolded, Randall's narrative underwent a transformation. Now he asserted that he had merely walked in on Nancy as she pulled the trigger, with no physical altercation. Detectives were left perplexed, grappling with the challenge of uncovering the truth behind this tragic incident. Despite the initial assertion of suicide by Randall, their suspicions were piqued. They understood the need to delve deeper into the available evidence, seeking the assistance of the Washington County Medical Examiner's Office, the Oregon State Police Medical Examiner's Office, and the Oregon State Police Crime Lab. These agencies embarked on a meticulous examination of the crime scene, collecting forensic evidence and scrutinizing the gun allegedly used by Nancy. As the evidence was scrutinized, discrepancies began to emerge. Nancy's hands showed no traces of gunpowder residue, indicating that she had not fired the weapon. Furthermore, her clothing bore signs of charred particles in 2 areas, suggesting a struggle or attempt at self-defense. Most damning of all was the distance between the gun's muzzle and the wound on Nancy's head, a distance inconsistent with suicide and pointing firmly towards foul play. With the pieces of the puzzle gradually falling into place, all signs began pointing towards Randall. In the month following Nancy's tragic passing, detectives received a series of phony calls from coworkers and friends of Randall, revealing an unsettling reality. It emerged that Nancy had been contemplating divorce, and there were troubling indicators in Randall's behavior that suggested he may have harbored intentions to harm her. As the investigation continued, authorities requested that Randall undergo a polygraph examination to aid in their quest for the truth. However, he adamantly refused and even ceased cooperating with the investigation entirely. Despite the mounting evidence in Randall's suspicious actions, the case reached a frustrating impasse by August 1983, leaving Nancy's loved ones without answers or closure. Nearly 4 decades later, in August 2022, Detective Enel Sarich and the Violent Crimes Unit decided to breathe new life into the investigation. Armed with advanced technology and forensic techniques, they re-examined the evidence with a fresh perspective. The Oregon State Police Crime Lab reviewed the 1983 lab results, which only strengthened the belief that Nancy had not taken her own life. The detectives conducted over 20 interviews, engaging with individuals such as detectives, deputies, and firefighters who had responded to the scene in 1983. These interviews uncovered new leads that held the potential to crack the case wide open. In January 2023, detectives finally had the opportunity to speak with Randall, who was still residing in Tigard. During the interview, Randall disclosed seeking therapy to cope with the trauma of Nancy's death. When asked about his wife's mental health history, he stated that she had none, but he vehemently denied any involvement in her death. Despite his denials, detectives remained convinced that Randall was concealing the truth, as all the evidence pointed squarely in his direction. Subsequently, detectives referred the case to the Washington County District Attorney's Office, aiming to secure a grand jury indictment against Randall and finally achieve justice for Nancy. However, just as it seemed that justice might be served, a tragic turn of events occurred on February 8, 2023. Randall took his own life, leaving behind a note in which he continued to deny any role in Nancy's death. The detectives who had devoted countless hours to the case were left devastated and grappling with a sense of unfinished business. Despite their relentless efforts to gather evidence, interview witnesses, and pursue leads, their main suspect's death left them with the likelihood that the case would remain unsolved. Nancy's surviving loved ones, including her mother and 2 sisters, were left to pick up the pieces. While the case was officially closed due to Randall's passing, his actions spoke louder than any words ever could. Though they would never uncover the complete truth about Nancy's fate, they found some semblance of closure, comforted by the detectives' unwavering commitment to seeking justice on her behalf. In Southern California, a region renowned for its sunny climate, laid-back way of life, and breathtaking natural landscapes, lies a place that bears a captivating blend of cultural influences. This area's identity has been shaped by a diverse mix of elements, ranging from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood to the rich Mexican heritage that permeates its streets. Southern California is also home to some of the world's most iconic attractions, including Disneyland, Universal Studios Hollywood, and the Santa Monica Pier. However, it was within this seemingly idyllic backdrop that a series of gruesome murders commenced on that fateful day of July 25, 1980. At the time, a young resident of Brentwood named Carrie Lenander, a Palisades High School student, and her close friend Tony Garfield, both 15-year-old juniors at Palisades High, decided to embark on a hitchhiking adventure to the corner of Wilshire and Barrington. Little did they know that their lives would soon take a harrowing turn. Their ride that day was provided by a man described only as Ken from Canada, a male Caucasian. Ken drove them first to the Hollywood area, where they stopped for a restroom break. Carrie and Tony had been consuming alcohol before hitchhiking, and as they made their pit stop, Tony began to feel dizzy. She informed Carrie that she needed to return home. Ken complied, driving Tony back to her house. Tragically, this would be the last time Tony saw her friend alive. The events that unfolded leading up to Carrie's murder remain shrouded in mystery. However, the next day, on July 26, 1980, at approximately 4:30 a.m., Carrie's lifeless body was discovered in a street gutter on the 3700 block of Victoria Avenue in South Los Angeles. The only trace of evidence left behind by the perpetrator was white rock material, found in her hair and near her body, which matched the material discovered across from Carrie's residence. This grim discovery hinted at the chilling possibility that her murderer might have been someone who either knew her or had been stalking her in the days leading up to the tragedy. Tony Garfield, however, had no knowledge of the person in question. The autopsy report revealed that Carrie had been assaulted and strangled to death. An unidentified DNA sample, presumably belonging to the perpetrator, was collected from Carey's body but remained of little use due to the limitations of forensic technology in the 1980s. Detective Tim Marcia, who was assigned to the case, believed that Ken and Carey had visited her residence, where she changed her clothes before their fateful outing. Yet, the exact circumstances and timeline of the murder remained elusive. Carey Lenender's parents, Carl J. Lenender III and Joyce Fadden, were understandably devastated by their daughter's tragic death. They were determined to seek justice for Carey, offering a reward of $50,000, in addition to a $25,000 reward from the LA City Council. Through various news outlets, Carey's parents spoke fondly of their daughter, who was just 9 days away from her 16th birthday, and pleaded with the public for any information regarding her murder, even though her case received limited media attention. Brief coverage on shows like Lost Lives and 60 Minutes shed some light on her story. Despite a lack of concrete leads, investigators remained resolute in their pursuit of the killer. Interviews were conducted and a suspect was on their radar, but an arrest proved elusive. Over time, the case grew cold, and it wasn't until early 2002 that the LAPD Cold Case Homicide Unit reopened it. Unfortunately, even this effort did not lead to the apprehension of the perpetrator. For the next 2 decades, the case languished in the archives of the Los Angeles Police Department, while Carey's family grappled with the pain of their loss and the lingering quest for justice. It wasn't until 2022 that the case saw a dramatic development when DNA evidence finally connected a 76-year-old man named Billy Ray Richardson to the crimes. However, the details of how this connection was made after more than 4 decades remain undisclosed. Surprisingly, investigators also linked Richardson to 3 additional murders in Southern California from the 1980s and 1990s. Among these crimes were the killings of 25-year-old Beverly Cruz and 22-year-old Deborah Cruz, whose naked bodies were discovered in an apartment in West Los Angeles. Another victim, 28-year-old Trina Wilson, was found with her throat slashed in Inglewood on December 31, 1995. All 4 murders appeared to be sexually motivated. On July 14, 2022, Billy Ray Richardson was arrested in Fort Worth, Texas, on charges of multiple murders, sexual assault, and burglary. He was subsequently extradited to Los Angeles to face trial and was held in Tarrant County Jail while awaiting legal proceedings. However, a tragic twist unfolded when Richardson was brought to the hospital in a wheelchair and pronounced dead on February 15, 2023. His demise resulted from complications of a cervical spine injury and blunt force trauma, with COVID-19, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and dementia listed as other significant factors contributing to his death. Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman expressed sadness for the victims' families, acknowledging that they would never witness Richardson being held accountable for his heinous crimes. However, the identification of the perpetrator offered some solace, ensuring that he would no longer pose a threat to society. In the end, justice may have been delayed, but it ultimately found its way to the victims and their grieving families, providing closure and a measure of peace. 73-year-old Gregor and 72-year-old Irma Six lived in Canberra, Australia in 1999. On the night of November 6, 1999, 2 masked men forced their way into the Pick Grover Crescent home at around 9:30 p.m. The couple was bound with cable ties to their eyes and savagely beaten before the men ransacked their home, stealing cash and jewelry. Gregor managed to free himself and call the police, but Irma suffocated on her own blood and lost her life at the scene. Detective Sergeant Craig Marriott recalled the event. They were assaulted, bound with cable ties, duct tape, and a telephone cord, and the house was ransacked after a period of what is estimated to be about an hour. Mr. Pick, who had been in and out of consciousness, was able to free himself from his bindings and found his wife face down in the hallway. He rolled her over and removed her bindings, but she had passed away. She had effectively drowned in her own blood from a broken nose. Detectives who started investigating the case found that the Picks were also victims of aggravated burglaries in 1997 and 1998, which are thought to be linked to the third fatal break-in. Police made it known that they believed someone in Melbourne's Hungarian community could hold vital information on who was responsible for what happened to Irma. Investigators found DNA evidence at the crime scene, but with DNA technology not being as advanced in 1999, there was little they could do. In 2012, a $500,000 reward was offered for anyone able to help the police secure a successful conviction. In the case of 2019, investigators decided to take another look at the case. DNA technology was now a lot more advanced. Almost immediately, a DNA match was established through the National Crime Investigation DNA database. DNA testing led investigators to Stevie Fabrizi. It took a while to track Fabrizi down. When he was questioned by investigators on September 8, 2023, Fabrizi made partial admissions to his involvement in the incident. He admitted being on the premises for the purpose of the burglary and gave details of the burglary that were not known publicly. 68-year-old Steve Fabrizi from Melbourne was then subsequently arrested and charged with taking the life of Irma Palak. Fabrizi faced Dandong Magistrates Court on September 21, 2023, where he applied for release on bail. The opposing bail detective, Sergeant Craig Marriott, told the court that police had serious concerns that Fabrizi, also known as István Fabrizi, could flee the country if released, as he is a dual citizen of Hungary. Marriott said they also feared the 68-year-old might interfere with witnesses, with his alleged co-offender still on the run. The court heard that while Fabrizi owns his own home in Australia, he has no family there. The police were aware that he planned to return to Hungary, where he owns land upon his retirement. Fabrizi also has about $250,000 in savings, Marriott said, creating further concern that he had the means to leave Australia. I am also aware he has made statements to Victoria Police, while in custody, about wanting to harm himself. He made the same statement to us. He said he asked us to shoot him. The court heard this. While the 68-year-old has had no prior offenses for failing to answer bail, he did spend time in prison from 2010 to 2012 after being convicted of conspiring to hijack a truckload of cigarettes. Magistrate Jason Ang eventually denied bail and ordered Fabrizi to appear in Cour Magistratis Court on an undetermined date. In a statement released on behalf of the Pix family, they said that after nearly 24 years of pain, questioning, and uncertainty, they had never given up hope of finding out who was responsible for this heinous act. Only Irma was taken from us, but Gregor's life all but ended on that night, and ours have never been the same, they said outside the court. Detective Superintendent Scott Marer from the ACT Police said this arrest was immensely satisfying for investigators. The family of Irma Pix never gave up hope, never ceased asking for community assistance, and always worked to keep the case in people's minds, he said. Marer said police were continuing to work to identify and charge a second suspect and believe it is only a matter of time before this occurs. I am confident it is only a matter of time before we are able to provide full closure for the family and the Canberra community, Marer said. The $500,000 reward offer remains active, and information received can still be considered for this reward. Furthermore, investigators released an image of a man they believe may have information on what happened to Irma. In July 1980, the remains of an unknown man were discovered in a wooden crate in the Chicago Greater Area Sanitary and Shipping Canal. The crate containing the body had been removed using heavy equipment, along with other debris from a grate that prevents objects from flowing and blowing into the power plant. The crate broke open sometime during removal and dumping by power plant employees. The body was found by an employee a couple of days later, looking for driftwood. Advanced decomposition made identification difficult. Items recovered along with the remains included several vehicle key investigators determined that someone had taken the unknown man's life, as his autopsy revealed that he had been shot in the abdomen with a shotgun and then multiple times with a handgun. Investigators suspected that the man had lost his life several days before the discovery of his body. Investigators believed that the unknown white male was between 25 and 35 years old at the time his life was taken. They estimated that he was 5'11" in tall and weighed approximately 175 libs. Investigators observed that he had a light brown to blonde hair that was approximately 2 inches in length at the time of discovery. The man was wearing dark blue work pants that had a laundry marked Gym 5, a green pullover t-shirt with pocket wool socks, and a single dark-colored herringbone house slipper. Partial fingerprints were recovered from the body. They were submitted to both state and federal databases for comparison, but failed to match anyone. Some dental evidence was developed, but did not match any known missing persons. For over 4 decades, law enforcement has diligently pursued. In November 2009, his case was entered into the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, and Stoddard testing was performed, but there was no match for anyone. Despite exhaustive efforts from law enforcement, the man's identity has remained a mystery, with few leads for investigators to pursue. The case eventually went cold in 2022, when the Will County Coroner Office, as part of a long-standing collaboration with AAM, decided to leverage forensic genetic genealogy to see if they could establish an identity for the man or a close relative. Will County Coroner's Office has contributed substantial funding towards the testing for this case, and the rest of the needed funding was crowdfunded using the DNA Solve platform. Skeletal evidence was sent to AAM, and a suitable DNA extract was developed. AAM scientists used forensic-grade genome sequencing to build a comprehensive DNA profile, and AAM's in-house genetic genealogy research team used the profile to develop investigative leads. The leads were returned to the law enforcement and a follow-up investigation, along with confirmation DNA testing of a family member, confirmed that the 1980 victim was Webster Pfizer, born September 25, 1950. The Will County Carer's Office announced on March 22, 2023, that the remains belonged to 29-year-old Webster from Chicago. Sergeant Mike Ernest said obviously, there were a lot of mob-related crimes back in that era, and a lot of those came into Will County. So is that a possibility we will explore? Yes, it is something I can say for certain, but I do not. Webster's wife recently told investigators that her husband left home in mid-July 1980 to get cigarettes at a gasoline station about a block away, but never returned. Relatives said Webster was eventually reported missing to the Chicago Police Department. Joe Piper, a deputy coroner and cold case investigator with the Will County Coroner's Office, said this gentleman is somebody's father, somebody's uncle, somebody's brother, and it is nice to be able to give the family some kind of closure because they are looking and wondering whatever happened to their loved one. Battle Creek, located in southwest Michigan, is a welcoming town celebrated for its friendly neighborhoods and robust economic industry. As a thriving community in the United States, it boasts a diverse population of residents. Among those residents was an innocent 21-year-old girl named Ashley Parlier in the year 2005, a year that would forever change the course of her life. Ashley Parlier was born on October 16, 1983, to Sherry and Russell Parlier. She grew up as a shy and quiet child, with only a few close friends. Her family had always been concerned about her trusting and naive nature. Ashley's older sister, Nicole Campan, remembered her as a trusting soul who believed in the inherent goodness of people. Ashley saw the world through a lens of positivity, always hoping for the best in others. Ashley, with her brown eyes and a beautiful smile that showcased her crooked teeth, graduated from Battle Creek Central High School and found employment at the nearest Taco Bell restaurant located on Northeast Capitol Avenue. At the age of 21, she was a lean and petite girl, weighing just 100 pounds. Her mental capacity was estimated to be that of a 12 to 14-year-old, which made her particularly vulnerable. In 2005, Ashley's life took a tragic turn. She found herself pregnant, a fact that deeply worried her parents, Russell and Sherry Parlier. They urged her to see a doctor and receive prenatal care, but Ashley resisted their intervention. Frustrated and upset, She left her family's home in Bedford Township, a neighborhood called Urbandale in Battle Creek, on June 12, 2005. All she had with her was $700, which she had been saving to purchase a car. Little did her family know that this would be the last time they saw her. Initially, her family assumed she had gone to a friend's house to blow off steam and expected her to return soon. However, as days turned into weeks without any sign of Ashley, their worry grew. Finally, about a week later, they decided to report her missing to the police. The authorities released information about Ashley's physical appearance, describing her as 5 feet 9 inches tall and last seen wearing a checkered shirt and blue jeans paired with brown leather sandals. The police received several tips from the public, indicating sightings of Ashley in different parts of the city, with a focus on the Houghton Lake area. Unfortunately, all these leads turned out to be dead ends, leaving her family increasingly anxious. As the investigation continued, suspicion turned toward Ashley's parents, who had not immediately reported her disappearance. Her father agreed to take a polygraph test and was cleared of any wrongdoing. However, Ashley's mother, Sherry, who was showing signs of Huntington's disease, declined to undergo the polygraph. Nicole, Ashley's sister, defended their parents, explaining that the family had been embroiled in an argument, and they assumed Ashley needed time to process things and would return soon. In their small Michigan town, sudden disappearances were rare, and they never imagined it would take years to uncover the truth. The police also looked into Ashley's ex-boyfriend, suspecting him to be the father of her unborn child. However, their investigation did not yield any conclusive evidence tying him to the crime. Despite their dedicated efforts, the police could not find any leads, suspects, or evidence related to Ashley's disappearance, and the case eventually went cold. In March 2021, officers renewed their efforts to uncover the truth about Ashley's disappearance. Detectives from various law enforcement agencies, including the Calhoun County Sheriff's Department and the Michigan State Police, joined the investigation. Sheriff Steve Hinckley even informed the media about the extensive efforts made to solve the case, including trips to California, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. A breakthrough in the case came unexpectedly when Pennsylvania law enforcement contacted Calhoun County officers in January 2021. They had found a lead in Ashley Parlier's case while questioning Harold David Holman III, a 44-year-old serial killer, about the murders of 2 other women, Tiana Phillips and Erica Schultz. Holman, seeking to avoid the death penalty, requested that all 3 cases be merged, shocking the detectives who had not previously connected him to Ashley's disappearance. Further investigation revealed that Holman had committed another horrific murder, this time admitting to killing Ashley Parlier. All that remained were the answers and reasons behind this heinous crime. Harold David Holman III was born on November 29, 1978, and had lived in Germany during his late teenage years. His criminal tendencies emerged when he was just 20 years old. On May 30, 1999, Holman was sitting around a campfire when he attacked Joseph Whitehurst, a 21-year-old son of an Air Force colonel. Holman felt threatened by Joseph's dancing and brutally assaulted him. Joseph was initially thought to be missing, but was later found outside Ramstein Air Base, bludgeoned to death with a club found at the crime scene. Holman's admission to this crime occurred after he was arrested for an unrelated offense and confessed to Joseph's murder. In Germany, Holman was tried as a juvenile, receiving a 6-year term at a reform school. After returning to the United States, he pursued a career as a truck driver. Holman's partial confession about Ashley's murder led to the Calhoun County Police Department taking over the case. It was revealed that Holman had been a resident of Battle Creek between 2002 and 2009, and he had crossed paths with Ashley at a bowling alley. To everyone's shock, it was confirmed that Holman was the father of Ashley's unborn child. During further interrogation, Holman disclosed chilling details of Ashley's last moments. He revealed that after her argument with her parents, Ashley had come to his house in Emmett Township, Michigan on the evening of June 13, 2005, seeking help for a pregnancy test. An argument escalated, and Holman violently assaulted Ashley, rendering her unconscious. He then transported her to the Pennsylvania hills, where he brutally bludgeoned her to death. Holman used a log to carry out the gruesome act, and left her lifeless body in an overgrown field in Newton Township, 10 miles from town. He returned home, took a shower, and disposed of his bloody clothing at his workplace. Holman claimed that he felt deep remorse after killing Ashley and drowned his guilt in alcohol for weeks. He even revisited the location years later, finding only her skeletal remains. Holman's confession revealed his fascination with serial killers, particularly citing the influence of movies like Silence of the Lambs and the character Hannibal Lecter. When asked which homicide he remembered the most, he replied that he could vividly recall all of them, and admitted that had he not been apprehended, he would have continued to kill. Holman, who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, revealed that he had planned to kill again after several years. On June 13, 2018, he targeted a new victim, a mother of 2 children named Tiana Phillips, who subsequently disappeared without a trace. Similarly, on December 6, 2020, Erica Schultz, a 26-year-old autistic woman, had arranged to meet an online date named Dave. The date went awry, and Erica went missing, prompting her worried family and friends to contact the police. Law enforcement examined Erica's contact history and identified Holman as the prime suspect. On December 27, 2020, a Norfolk Southern police officer arrested him along railroad tracks in Duncannon, Pennsylvania, with a self-inflicted wound. Holman expressed a desire to die for his sins and confessed to the murders of Schultz and Phillips. While receiving medical treatment in the hospital, he was subsequently sent to jail. In jail, Holman wrote a letter to his ex-wife, providing a chilling account of his brutal actions in killing Tiana Phillips. He expressed that there was no real reason to kill Tiana other than seeking the rush he experienced during his murders. Holman nonchalantly described it as, "just like another day in the park." It became evident that Holman was not an ordinary criminal. He followed a distinct pattern in his killings. He would incapacitate his victims with blunt force trauma to the head, ensuring they were unconscious before attacking them. He would then dispose of their bodies without burying them and revisit the remains months later. Calhoun County Sheriff's Department Detective John Pignataro noted that Holman did not maintain a permanent address in Pennsylvania in 2021 and attributed his actions to a failed marriage. Holman held a distorted belief in alpha and non-alpha individuals, referring to a master-submissive dynamic. He believed that when his wife did not submit to him, he sought that dynamic in extramarital affairs. In a surprising turn of events, Holman eventually offered an apology to the Parlier family. He stated that he regretted Ashley's murder more than any other, but Nicole, Ashley's sister, could not accept an apology from a serial killer who had not only taken her sister's life, but also claimed 3 other innocent victims. Despite identifying the killer, Ashley remained missing, and her family continued to suffer. In an attempt to locate Ashley's remains, the police asked Holman to lead them to the area where he had left her body. As part of a plea deal with the Luzerne County District Attorney's Office, Holman agreed to cooperate in finding Ashley's remains in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. He guided Calhoun County Police to a wooded area at 6.5 Mile Road in Newton Township, south of Battle Creek. Despite the involvement of nearly 24 officers in a search on March 30, 2022, her body could not be located. Residents of the area recalled that the land had been farmland in 2005, but it had since been subdivided and sold to different property owners. Holman's inability to pinpoint the exact location where he had left Ashley's body frustrated the search efforts. Nevertheless, the police remained determined not to give up on finding her. In July 2021, Holman was charged with the murder of 21-year-old Ashley Parlier. Faced with the possibility of the death penalty, he pleaded guilty to the murders of Schultz and Phillips in September 2021, ultimately receiving 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Lucerne County President Judge Michael T. Val denounced Holman as evil for taking the lives of these innocent women for no reason. He described Holman's actions as unprecedented in his 30-year career. In February 2023, Holman pleaded guilty to the second-degree murder of Ashley Parlier. He was sentenced to 37.5 to 60 years in prison during his trial on April 10, 2023. Nicole, on behalf of her family, delivered a victim impact statement during Holman's trial. She was joined by the older sisters of other victims from Pennsylvania who had connected with her through a Facebook group called Bring Ashley Home. They found solace in their shared grief and vowed to remember their sisters for their goodness and kindness, not the man who took their lives. Calhoun County Sheriff Steve Hinckley continued to seek any information that could aid in resolving Ashley Parlier's case, which finally received some closure after 18 years of uncertainty and anguish. While Ashley's family may never fully recover from the tragedy, the identification and sentencing of her killer brought a sense of justice to a grieving community that had searched tirelessly for answers. In the year 2018, in the city of Prospect near Blacktown, Australia, there resided a 71-year-old widow named Nadir Sensoy. Her life was intertwined with that of her beloved son, Salim Sensoy. Nadir's early years held many mysteries, but one thing was certain. She had been a steadfast resident of Prospect for nearly 4 decades. Within the close-knit community, Nadir held a special place in the hearts of her neighbors. She was renowned for her selfless acts of kindness, always ready to extend a helping hand, whether it was providing rides to the market or sharing her delectable homemade treats. Nadir's unwavering commitment to her community left an indelible mark, earning her admiration and respect from everyone who had the privilege of knowing her. To Nadir, family was paramount, and she took immense pride in being the devoted mother of 5 children and a loving grandmother to 17 cherished grandchildren. Her life revolved around creating a nurturing environment for her family. However, the tranquility of the quiet town of Prospect was shattered when tragedy struck Nadir. The beloved matriarch, who was a friend to all, mysteriously vanished without a trace in December 2018. The last confirmed sighting of her was on Thursday, December 6, 2018, near her residence. The days that followed were excruciating for her family, friends, and the community that had grown so fond of her. Nadir's sudden disappearance was highly unusual, leaving everyone bewildered and concerned for her safety. It was on Tuesday, December 11, 2018, that the Sensoy family decided to take action and reported Nadir as a missing person, initiating a frantic search to locate her. The local Blacktown Police Command promptly launched an extensive search operation, hoping to uncover any clues leading to her whereabouts. Despite their tireless efforts, the searches conducted around her home yielded no results, intensifying the pervasive sense of unease. Both her family and the police shared deep concerns about her well-being. As the investigation unfolded, detectives uncovered a puzzling detail. They learned that Nadir had made several appointments prior to her disappearance and had not accessed her bank account since then. This discovery deepened the enigma surrounding her vanishing act, leaving everyone with more questions than answers. Investigators persevered, working tirelessly around the clock, with the hope of finding any lead that could unravel the mystery. They made a public appeal, providing a description of Nadir as a Mediterranean Middle Eastern woman, approximately 165 centimeters tall, with a slender build and short, dyed brown hair. Despite their best efforts, no one came forward with any information. As months passed, hope began to wane, and the fear that she may have met a grim fate cast a long shadow over the community. Even if she had been harmed, the question of her whereabouts remained unanswered. The investigation eventually hit a dead end, leaving everyone wondering if the truth would ever be uncovered. The people of Prospect were heartbroken, mourning the loss of a beloved community figure. They clung to the hope of a miracle that would reunite them with Nadir. In 2020, after 2 years of fruitless investigation, the police made a pivotal decision to offer a reward of $350,000 for any information leading to Nadir's discovery. The hope was that this substantial reward would prompt someone's conscience to come forward with vital information. The announcement of the reward injected new life into the investigation, with law enforcement eagerly anticipating a breakthrough. However, as weeks turned into months, it became evident that the reward had not yielded any promising leads. Despite the desperate efforts of Nadir's family, friends, and the police, she remained missing, and the mystery surrounding her disappearance only deepened. In the same year, A startling development emerged when investigators shifted their focus to Nadir's own son, Salim, as a potential suspect. At the time, Salim was serving a 2.5-year prison sentence for assaulting his sister and possessing an unauthorized firearm, an arrest made approximately a week after his mother's disappearance. While it remains unclear what led authorities to suspect him, investigators cited Salim's behavior as one of the leads they were pursuing in their quest to shed light on his mother's perplexing vanishing act. Then, on May 23, 2020, in a daring escape, Salim managed to break free from the Glen in his correction center where he was incarcerated. Shockingly, he simply walked out of the low-security prison and absconded in a stolen red Subaru WRX. This audacious jailbreak prompted a massive manhunt, launching the police force into overdrive. The stolen vehicle was spotted the following day in Mori, 210 kilometers away from the correctional center. The police initiated a pursuit, but the situation grew increasingly perilous as the car sped recklessly, leading to the police abandoning the chase for safety reasons. Nevertheless, the police persisted in their search, aided by helicopters and the K9 unit. They eventually located the abandoned car, but Salim was nowhere to be found. Salim remained on the run for 8 arduous months, constantly evading capture, while the police conducted extensive searches and inquiries in their desperate bid to apprehend him. Finally, on January 11, 2021, officers from the Hawkesbury Police Area Command received a tip-off indicating that Salim was hiding in a house on New Street in Windsor. In the early hours of the morning, they descended upon the property and with the assistance of the K9 unit, they conducted a thorough search. Salim made a desperate attempt to flee from the back of the house, but it was too late. The police apprehended him and took him to the Windsor police station, where they executed 2 outstanding warrants for his inmate escape and vehicle theft. Despite Salim's capture, there was still no information regarding the whereabouts of his mother, Nadir, and the mystery surrounding her disappearance persisted. As the years passed, the hope of finding Nadir alive dwindled. In March 2023, a coronial inquest into her suspected death commenced. However, before any answers could be uncovered, the inquiry was abruptly halted due to shocking new information. Though the authorities remained tight-lipped about the specifics, it became evident that the spotlight had once again shifted to Nadir's son Salim. Following further inquiries, the police made their move on March 21, 2023. They finally arrested Salim, now 47 years old, at the Wagga Wagga police station and charged him with the murder of his own mother. On the same day, the court heard that he allegedly committed the heinous crime between December 6 and 11, 2018, in the Blacktown area. Salim's plea for bail was denied, and he now faced a protracted legal battle ahead. Nadir's daughter expressed relief upon hearing the news of her brother Salim's arrest for their mother's murder. The family hoped that with Salim's arrest, they could finally locate Nadir's remains and bring her home for a proper burial. However, the road ahead remained uncertain, with no one certain about the outcome of Salim's case, or if the truth about their mother's fate would ever come to light. In the heart of Indiana lies a charming little town known as Kokomo, where life is simple and ideal for raising children. This quaint town boasts a reputation for its low crime rate, earning it the nickname City of Firsts. However, beneath its serene exterior, Kokomo harbors a dark and tragic tale that left its mark on the community forever. It's a story that revolves around a young woman named Destiny Pittman, whose life was tragically cut short on a fateful night in 2013, marking one of the town's first harrowing incidents. Destiny Pittman, born on January 9, 1992, in Kokomo, was the child of Melvin L. Douglas Jr. and Carla A. Pittman McCombs. Destiny had a close-knit family with siblings and many friends who cherished her for her beautiful smile and charming personality. Her mere presence had the power to illuminate any room she entered. Destiny nurtured dreams of a modeling career, brimming with excitement about her future endeavors. Just 8 months before her untimely demise, Destiny had purchased a house where she resided with her boyfriend and a roommate. Their home also included 2 children and 3 dogs, among them a Chihuahua and 2 pit bulls. The clock struck 9:33 p.m. on February 7, 2013, when a chilling call reached the Kokomo police, urgently requesting their presence at 815 James Drive. The report indicated a shooting had occurred. Responding swiftly, officers arrived at the scene by 9:40 p.m., discovering a bullet hole in the wall and the lifeless body of 21-year-old Destiny Pittman lying in a pool of her own blood. Tragically, Destiny was pronounced dead on the spot. What makes this case all the more bewildering is that everyone in the house at the time of the incident, including the dogs, bore witness to the shocking event. 2 strangers had entered their sanctuary, ruthlessly ending the life of a young woman with her entire future ahead of her. They committed the heinous act, seizing cash and drugs before vanishing without a trace, leaving Kokomo in shock. Destiny Pittman's autopsy revealed that her untimely demise was due to a single gunshot wound to her chest, which pierced through her body and struck the wall behind her. A single .40 caliber shell casing was recovered from the crime scene. Subsequently, the police conducted interviews with Destiny's boyfriend and roommate to unravel the events that transpired that dreadful night. According to their accounts, there was a loud knock on the door, putting everyone in the house on high alert. Suddenly, the door was kicked in, and 2 armed intruders stormed into the premises. Destiny, perhaps unaware of the impending danger, confronted the intruders, who reacted by fatally shooting her. Chaos ensued as everyone in the house sought refuge, with Destiny's roommate and boyfriend unable to catch more than a fleeting glimpse of one of the intruders, represented by a solitary shoe. The intruders proceeded to ransack the house, with one of them voicing frustration, exclaiming, "Where the F is it?" After their nefarious act, the assailants fled the scene in a vehicle that remained unseen by the witnesses. Destiny's dreams, aspirations, and the promise of her future were all mercilessly extinguished on that tragic night in 2013. The roommate, though unable to identify the intruders visually, expressed her belief that they were African American, citing their urban-sounding voices as the basis for her assumption. However, she conceded that it remained a possibility that they could have been of a different ethnicity. Destiny's boyfriend, in his confession to the police, revealed that both he and Destiny had been involved in the sale of marijuana, although Destiny had withdrawn from the business after inheriting a sum of money. He admitted to having possession of a bag of marijuana and more than $2,000 earned from a recent drug sale a few days prior to the intrusion. The police surmised that the intruders might have been motivated by their knowledge of the drugs and cash kept in the house. Beyond these details, the police had little to go on, with no substantial leads to pursue. 2 years passed and it was now 2015, with the police still fervently working to unravel the mystery. The only information available was the cooperation of Destiny's boyfriend and roommate, who provided all the details they could recall. The dedicated detectives refused to relent, driven by the hope of bringing justice to Destiny and closure to her grieving family. In the midst of their anguish, Destiny's family struggled to come to terms with her tragic death. Her mother, Carla Pittman McCombs, preserved everything in the house as it was on that fateful day in 2013. The bullet hole remained untouched, along with all of Destiny's photographs. The only attempt at normalcy was the effort to remove the bloodstains from the bedroom floor. Carla's grief was unrelenting, and she often found herself in tears, battling depression. She clung to the hope that someone would come forward with information about her daughter's death, and she made her sentiments known in a media statement. She lamented the complete upheaval of her life, expressing her dissatisfaction with the perpetrators who had taken her child for no apparent reason, leaving her with immeasurable pain and devastation. Destiny's stepfather, Stephen McCombs, observed that Carla was struggling to cope with her daughter's death even after all these years. She would often welcome visitors into their home, referring to it as Destiny's house or Destiny's home. Destiny's biological father, Douglas Jr., shared his ongoing ordeal, expressing his daily struggles and the frustration he felt. He understood the limitations faced by the police in discussing the case due to its ongoing nature, but couldn't help but miss his daughter terribly. He held on to the hope that the individuals responsible would eventually have families of their own, experiencing the joy of parenthood. In that moment of understanding, he believed they might comprehend the depth of pain caused by their actions and come forward with a confession. Another unnamed family member echoed the sentiments of many, acknowledging that Destiny's heart would never beat again. While no amount of justice could ever be enough, they believed that the family deserved closure. They denounced the cold-heartedness and ruthlessness of the perpetrators, emphasizing the need for accountability. Captain Teresa Galloway of the Kokomo Police Department issued a statement, asserting that the case remained an open investigation, firmly rejecting the notion of classifying it as a cold case. They continued to welcome tips and pursue all leads diligently, urging anyone with information to come forward. However, for years, no substantial breakthroughs emerged, and the prospects of solving Destiny's case grew increasingly dim. Hope was rekindled in 2021 when the Kokomo police renewed their plea for information regarding Destiny's homicide. They affirmed that her case remained open and that they had been diligently investigating all tips and leads received over the past 8 years. They beseeched the public, urging them to share any knowledge they possessed. However, as time passed, it seemed that Destiny's case would remain shrouded in mystery. A significant turning point occurred on December 5, 2022, when the Kokomo Police Department received a voicemail that would change the course of the investigation. A woman reached out, expressing her belief that the case should have been resolved by now. Frustrated by the lack of progress, she felt compelled to share information she had kept hidden for years. After witnessing press releases about Destiny's case for an extended period, she could no longer bear the burden of silence. She disclosed the identities of the 2 individuals who had barged into Destiny's house on that fateful night in 2013, 36-year-old Jesse McCartney and 32-year-old Joey McCartney. The informant initially conveyed her fear of Jesse McCartney, but when contacted by the police, she revealed that she had been in the company of the McCartney brothers on the night of the incident. They had claimed they were running an errand, and she had tagged along. She had been waiting in a Jeep parked outside Destiny's house when she heard a loud noise emanating from within. Within minutes, Jesse emerged from the house clutching a gallon-sized bag of marijuana and a substantial amount of cash. Joey followed suit, and Jesse, the owner of the firearm used in the crime, displayed visible signs of distress and anxiety. The informant further disclosed that the McCartney brothers had sold both the gun and the Jeep within 6 months of the incident. Jesse subsequently asked the informant to accompany him and drove past Destiny's house the following day, pointing out the police tape surrounding the premises to confirm the accuracy of the story. When the police asked the informant to identify the house she was referring to, it was confirmed to be Destiny's residence on James Drive. She also revealed that Jesse had changed his phone number but was still residing in Kokomo, specifically on Monroe Street. In contrast, his brother Joey had relocated to Kentucky. Building on this newfound information, the police revisited Destiny's boyfriend and showed him photographs of Jesse and Joey McCartney. Destiny's boyfriend recognized Joey, recalling having seen him in their house in the company of a mutual friend. Finally, after a decade of persistent investigation and leads provided by the public, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. With the accumulation of sufficient evidence, the authorities wasted no time in seeking justice. An official statement confirmed that investigators from the Criminal Investigations Section had obtained arrest warrants for Jesse and Joey McCartney. Joey was apprehended by the U.S. Marshals and local police around 6 a.m. on March 2, 2023, at a residence in Graham, Kentucky. Merely 2 hours later, Jesse was taken into custody at his Kokomo residence. Both McCartney brothers were charged with a slew of offenses, including robbery resulting in bodily injury, conspiracy to commit burglary resulting in bodily injury, and murder, all categorized as Class A felonies. Additionally, They faced a Class B felony charge of burglary. Indiana court records revealed that Joey had a prior run-in with the law, having faced a misdemeanor battery charge in September 2012. Subsequently, a pre-trial diversion agreement was filed on February 28, 2013, and the scheduled bench trial was canceled by March 2014 after Joey successfully completed the diversion program, resulting in the dismissal of the case. Jesse McCartney also had a police record, having been charged with battery in September 2012. The victim in this case was a healthcare provider who suffered injuries, leading to the modification of the charge to a felony. On April 3, 2013, a pre-trial diversion agreement was filed, and the case was ultimately dismissed within a year, with the case file destroyed in 2016. Following their arrest, Jesse and Joey McCartney appeared for their initial hearings on March 9 and March 10, 2023. Both brothers entered a plea of not guilty, but the judge ordered them to be held without bond. As they awaited their trial, the community grappled with the realization that after a decade of mystery, the McCartney brothers would finally face the consequences of their actions. The tragic story of Destiny Pittman's senseless death in Kokomo serves as a testament to the enduring pursuit of justice by law enforcement and the unwavering determination of a grieving family. Destiny's memory lives on, and her case reminds us that even the darkest mysteries can be unraveled with time, persistence, and the courage of those who come forward with crucial information. As the McCartney brothers await their day in court, the town of Kokomo stands united in the hope that justice will finally be served for Destiny and her loved ones. In 2018, Sarah Ashley Hill, a mother of two, was employed as a waiter at a neighborhood diner in Patrick County, Virginia. She was 33 years old. She was well known for her gentle disposition, upbeat smile, and passion for dancing and music. She was very close to her sister April, who frequently assisted her with her kids. Out of her 5 siblings, Sarah had the only attractive red hair and vivid blue eyes. She used to get teased by her siblings, who would tell her she was adopted in June 2018. At 1:30 a.m. on June 6, Sarah was in North Carolina visiting friends. Using her cell phone, she called April and said she needed a ride since she was on Blue Hollow Road, close to Mount Airy. Sarah did not give an explanation for her early morning stroll. April was unable to simply leave her job, which was about an hour away. At Ellen's Chatham Memorial Hospital, she worked as a registered nurse. Sarah Hill was vanished by the time the family reached Mount Airy. They presumed she had acquired transportation somewhere, or even managed to get into her own vehicle, a white 2000 Ford Taurus. April texted Sarah the following day to check on her and to ask if she still needed a ride. April never heard back. When April called back, the voicemail message was left. Sarah's phone had been switched off for 2 weeks. It was highly atypical for Sarah to be disconnected. April claims that they spoke at least once a week, if not more frequently. April mentioned that Sarah had a drug addiction and had a lot of questionable associates. She questioned whether it had anything to do with her sister going missing. Sarah was officially declared missing 1 month after her last sighting. After she vanished, detectives got to work looking into her disappearance. Her white Ford Taurus appeared at a business on NC 89 close to the intersection with Blue Hollow Road. Sarah was not named among the people accused of misconduct there, despite the fact that it was captured on camera footage that the business owner obtained while attempting to apprehend shoplifters. When the police investigated the vehicle, they discovered Sarah's handbag, phone keys, and a few personal belongings, but they were unable to locate any evidence of her disappearance, such as fingerprints or DNA. The cops thought about every scenario in which Sarah might have vanished. They looked into any enemies or issues she might have had with anyone who could have hurt her. They looked into any indebtedness or financial issues that might have been the reason behind her escape. Investigators also investigated whether she had a history of substance misuse or mental illness, which could have influenced her behavior or judgment. They did not discover any evidence to bolster any of these arguments, though. If she had any love relationships or household conflicts that could have resulted in aggression or jealousy. 3 separate residences on King Park Circle in Mount Airy, North Carolina, were among the many sites the Sioux County Sheriff's Office examined during the investigation that began in January 2019. Following Sarah's final known movements, detectives surmised that she was in the Stokes County vicinity where she had been spending time. They were taken to an Ashbury Road property in Stokes County, North Carolina, where Sarah was last seen at the time of her disappearance. With a guy, this person of interest acted suspiciously, refusing access to his home. It was later found that the man had been charged with assault in 2012. Detectives brought in specialized personnel to use heavy equipment to move dirt and terrain and stabilize an existing structure on Monday, October 17, 2012, when the Sioux County Sheriff's Office, the Stokes County Sheriff's Office, and the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation executed a search warrant for the property of 1791 Asbury Road, Westfield, North Carolina. Human remains were discovered beneath the floorboards. On October 20, 2022, the remains were delivered to the Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. On October 11, 2023, an autopsy was conducted, and it was determined that the remains belonged to Sarah Ashley Hill. Leroy Hoover was detained and accused with killing Sarah, according to a statement released by the Stokes County Sheriff's Office. Hoover is still awaiting trial while being held without bond in the Stokes County Jail. He is still involved in other cases with the Stokes County Sheriff. We can only imagine how difficult this has been on the family of Ms. Hill investigators from the NCSBI agents that worked on this investigation, as well as the investigators from the Patrick County, Sioux County, and Stokes County Sheriff's Offices, according to Joey Lehman. They never gave up and accomplished an amazing work. Nothing can bring back a loved one, but we can only hope that this gives M. Hill's family some closure. 12-year-old Jennifer Renee Odom was a 7th grader at Thomas E. Waitman Middle School in Wesley Chapel, Florida, in 1993. She played the clarinet in the school band and was also a barefoot water skier who often placed high in tournaments. She was the skier who climbed to the top of the human pyramid, gliding atop the water. Jennifer was born on August 25, 1980. She was the eldest daughter of Renee Converse and stepdad Clark Converse. She had a 9-year-old sister, Jessica Ann Odom, and was the granddaughter of Jim and Margie Denny. They lived in St. Joseph, a small community near Dade City, Florida. Jennifer and Jessica had a rabbit called Beanie. Jennifer also absolutely loved her Springer Spaniel, Gypsy. The two sisters built forts, rode four-wheelers, and spent summer days swimming in the creek behind their house on the family's 15-acre property. It was a crisp morning on Friday, February 19, 1993, when Jennifer Odom put on her white jeans and a white turtleneck to get ready for school. She put on a red cashmere sweater, a gift from her grandmother, over her shoulder-length chestnut-colored hair. She was slim and tan due to spending a lot of time outdoors. On that same morning, after lacing up her pair of black boots, she got into the car with her mother. The two drove 200 yards up the winding Lime Rock driveway to wait for the school bus near their mailbox. Jennifer climbed onto the bus and took her usual spot on the back seat so she and her mother could see each other until Renee, following behind, turned left to head to work. After school, at around 3 p.m., Jennifer stepped off her school bus, waved goodbye to her friends, and started walking the short 200 yards to her home. At about 4 p.m., Jennifer's sister arrived at their home from school to find it locked and unable to enter. She then called their mother to tell her that her big sister was not home yet. Renee Converse then realized Jennifer must not have made it home, so she called Jennifer's best friend, Michelle, who stated that she saw Jennifer exit the bus and begin walking home. Jennifer's mother knew something was very wrong and called the police. Within hours, deputies launched a wide-scale search, and a search party of about 400 volunteers was formed to help scour about 60 square miles of countryside. Family, friends, neighbors, and other volunteers searched for Jennifer, and law enforcement was equipped with police dogs to comb the rolling groves, pastures, and woods surrounding the tiny Pasco County town of Dade City. Every law enforcement agency in the Bay Area was looking for a blue truck that was seen in the area by some of her classmates, children riding the school bus with Jennifer. They remembered seeing an older light blue, unknown model pickup truck, slowly following Jennifer down the road in the direction in which she was walking. The children described it as having a silver-painted rear bumper, not chrome, and a trailer hitch with wires hanging and pipes, or a ladder in the back. The driver was described by the children as a white male in his 40s with shoulder-length brown hair. The blue truck became the focus of the search parties, as investigators believed that the driver may have been involved in Jennifer's disappearance. As a last resort to find the truck, the FBI, as well as Hernando and Pasco County Sheriff's personnel, worked from a dock in a boathouse as divers searched Lake Rovita for the vehicle. 6 days after Jennifer vanished, on Thursday, February 25, 1993, a man and a woman searching an abandoned orange grove about 10 miles north of Jennifer's school bus stop found her badly decomposed nude body. Her body was found near a horse trail off Powell Road, south of Brooksville, amid a cluster of pine trees in the orange grove. She was found viciously assaulted and had suffered blunt force trauma to her head. Detectives said she likely lost her life there in the woods not long after her disappearance. Hernando County Sheriff Al Ninhays stated, "We are not exactly sure how long her abductor kept her captive or when exactly the slaying took place, but we are relatively confident it took place in that field." Jennifer's clothing was never found, neither the blue truck nor its driver. While Jennifer's family was still busy with her funeral arrangements, country music star Vince Gill was scheduled to sing at the local Strawberry Festival on Monday, March 1, 1993. Jennifer's stepfather, Clark Converse, said the girls had looked forward to Gill's performance for weeks, hoping they could get him to autograph photos before the concert. Clark Converse and Jessica went to the festival to fulfill Jennifer's wish that Gill autograph a photo in which Jennifer and her sister had posed with the singer at a previous concert on January 10th. Between shows, festival vice president Joe Newsom took the 3 snapshots to Gill, who was eating dinner. Jennifer's stepdad had asked that Gill autograph one for Jessica, one for Jennifer, and one for both girls. Newsom said afterward, "I told Gill this young lady had been slayed, and her dad was outside." Gill replied that he remembered hearing about the incident. He, who also had a young daughter, autographed the photos, writing on one to Jennifer, "May God be with you." As both Gill and Newsom wept, Gill then went to the night's second show. Before singing the last song, he told the audience about Jennifer. "I'm going to try to get through this the best I can," he said, his voice cracking. Gill sang his Grammy-winning hit, "I Still Believe in You," and dedicated it to Jennifer, who was tragically robbed of her life. Midway through the song, with tears running down his face, Gill asked the crowd to help him finish. Nearly 15,000 voices joined in. Radio personality Jeff Moore stood backstage and looked out at thousands of tear-stained faces. He said, "It was heart-ripping," he said afterward. Unfortunately, with no one in the community providing investigators with useful information, her case went unsolved for 13 months. Before Jennifer was abducted, on January 16, 1992, a 17-year-old girl was kidnapped as she got off a school bus in north-central Pasco County. She was found in a pool of blood behind an abandoned house, brutally attacked, assaulted, and beaten. Sheriff Ninhays said she suffered injuries to her head and skull that were very significant. She survived, but her life was forever changed, as she was paralyzed on her left side. Ninhays said she was a former honor roll student and a track and field participant and was a true victim. She was not engaged in a high-risk lifestyle. Law enforcement was able to collect DNA from the crime scene at the time, and since there were similarities between what happened to Jennifer and the unnamed girl, detectives believed the cases may be related. Both victims were adolescent girls who were abducted after getting off the school bus in Pasco County, taken to a remote field, assaulted, and abandoned with the belief they would succumb to their injuries. The other victim was found just a few miles from where Jennifer's body was found. After a series of blind alleys, the police called upon psychic Nancy Meyer, 16 months after the incident, to assist in finding the person responsible for what happened. Nancy Meyer is a psychic from Pennsylvania who has been working with police around the country for decades. According to Nancy, she had consulted in more than 300 criminal investigations and had offered critical clues more than 80% of the time. Nancy believed that 2 men were involved in taking Jennifer's life. She described them as white, muscular mechanics, and she said one may be a smoker with a heavy cough. The crime scene photographs were classified, therefore Nancy Meyer was not allowed to see it. Despite this, she was able to visualize 2 men in detail. She was taken to the site where Jennifer's body was found, and Nancy pointed out that there were belongings in a nearby area that had not yet been discovered. She was able to describe several of Jennifer's items that were still missing, including her cousin's clarinet case with the letters LO on them. She continued to give information about the perpetrators in the hope of solving the case. Detective Carlos Douglas of the Hernando County Sheriff's Office said, "Nancy Meyer was extremely accurate on some things that led us to look in other areas that we had not thought of, so we obtained a lot of information from what she had to offer." On December 2, 1994, Jennifer's unsolved case was aired on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries on national TV. After the show aired, more than 50 phone tips and even more investigative leads from around the country arrived by mail at the Hernando County Sheriff's Office. A spokesman of the Sheriff's Office said, "The show did for us what we wanted it to do. It got us some more exposure." Despite the new exposure, former Hernando County Sheriff's Major Gary Zorn Smith, who oversaw the investigation in its early years, said the investigators were stumped. He said there was a strong possibility the crime would go unsolved, and what's even worse is that if we solve it, it may take another crime to do it, he said at the time. Approximately 2 years after Jennifer's body was found, on Thursday, January 5, 1995, a couple hunting for scrap metal in a rural area of Hernando County discovered Jennifer's missing book bag and clarinet case. It was found several miles from the location of her body. Police were able to lift fingerprints from her backpack and clarinet case, from what is believed to be the person responsible. Unfortunately, there was never a hit in the database for a suspect matching these fingerprints. Over the years, the case garnered national attention and haunted the Tampa Bay region. Thousands of dollars in reward money offered for tips went unclaimed. Detectives logged tens of thousands of hours chasing leads, and Jennifer's family waited for news as the years turned to decades. Jennifer's mother, Renee Converse, wondered if it was somebody Jennifer knew. Clark Converse, Jennifer's stepfather, added, "There is a real chance that the person who did it is somebody we have contact with. If they catch someone, we're going to be thrown into the spotlight. Learning how to deal with a trial and confronting this person is going to throw us to square one in learning to deal with this." Renee said she cries a bit more each year. The reality is that Jennifer is gone and will never be in our lives again. Nothing is going to change that. She also said that the family is thankful for what they do know. "We are blessed that we have this much closure. We are not looking for her. We know where she is. It is going to be a bittersweet finale." She could still picture her 12-year-old daughter, slim and sun-kissed, waving goodbye at the back window of the Pasco County school bus. It was the last time she would see her brown-eyed firstborn girl. In 2015, Detective George Lundgren was contacted by Pasco County Sheriff Chris Nacco, who stated that new technology had led to a solid lead in the 1992 case in which the teenage girl was found alive. It was the case investigators believed was linked to Jennifer's. The odds of finding another match, Nacco said, was 1 in 7.7 nonillion, a number with 30 zeros. Lundgren commented, "I think DNA is going to be a big part of Jennifer's case, as it is with any of the old cases, because items were collected. It is just now that the technology has advanced." The biological evidence found in the investigation of the 1992 case was tested before February 2015, and detectives got a full DNA profile. Investigators used a DNA procedure known as familial searching, which allows law enforcement to find a suspect by comparing male DNA left at the scene with that of family members. The shortfall of a standard DNA search is that a suspect's genetic fingerprint must be on file in the offender database for law enforcement to make a match. Sheriff Ninhai said, "Until 2015, there were no leads on that particular piece of DNA. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement compared the DNA to local DNA to see if there were any close matches, which would be a family member. The sheriff said they found the DNA match, that of Jeffrey Crum, who was in jail at the time. Investigators then obtained DNA samples from Crum's brother, father, and grandfather. A direct comparison between the DNA found in the victim and that of Crum's father found a match, leading to the indictment of Jeffrey Crum. Crum was already serving 2 life sentences for the assault and kidnapping case out of Pasco County that was prosecuted around 2015. In February 2015, the arrest and sentence of Crum gave Detective Lloyd Grant a new resolve, and Jennifer's family new hope that the person responsible would be caught. Detectives then began an intensive investigation and interviewed everyone they could find for the next several years who may have been associated with Crum around the time Jennifer was kidnapped. This information was turned over to the state attorney, and the facts and circumstances were turned over to a grand jury. On July 27, 2023, a month shy of what would have been Jennifer's 43rd birthday, officials announced that they had finally made an arrest in the case, and prosecutors would seek capital punishment against the accused. State Attorney Bill Glass made the announcement during a press conference, just after the Hernando County Sheriff's Office announced that it had charged the 61-year-old Jeffrey Norman Crum with the kidnapping, assault, and slaying of Jennifer 30 years before. Glass also said, "I have confidence that we have the right person and we have the right aggravators in this particular case to treat it as a capital punishment case. This is every parent's nightmare. This is the thing that keeps parents up at night, worried about their children." Detective George Lundgren, who had spent years investigating Jennifer's case, said, "Shock is probably the best word to describe the reaction of Jennifer's family when he told them about the arrest. He said he did it quickly because I did not want to get emotional. It is a lot for them to take in and absorb, and I can imagine it is going to take some time before it really sinks in." According to Sheriff Ninhuis, every viable lead for the past 30 years, including those that came from the Pasco County Sheriff's Office, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, or private citizens, was thoroughly investigated. He added that the investigation never stopped. Hundreds of items were tested and retested every time new technology came out in the hope of finding the smoking gun to solve this case. The sheriff added that countless detectives, sworn law enforcement personnel, civilian tipsters, and countless others have had a hand in this investigation. The minute Crum was identified as a suspect in the case, Detective Lundgren went to work, putting a mosaic together like a puzzle. I can tell you that other than the conviction in a previous case, there was no other significant piece of the puzzle. Every other piece of the puzzle that brought us to this point consisted of tiny fragments that gave the state attorney and the grand jury enough confidence to indict Crum. He also said that they are searching for additional victims, as authorities fear Crum may be responsible for other crimes. A picture of him from 1993 was released, asking that anyone who recognizes him from the 1980s and 1990s contact Sheriff Ninhuis. "We urge anyone who had interactions with this individual, has information on other crimes he may have committed, or may have themselves been a victim of Jeffrey Crum, to reach out to the Hernando County Sheriff's Office and speak to our cold case unit." Despite keeping a lot of information close to the vest, authorities did say that in 1992, Crum worked in construction as a drywall installer and lived on Somerset Lane in Spring Hill, the Pasco County area where Jennifer was abducted from. His residence was about 21 miles from the place where Jennifer was last seen and 12 miles from where her body was found. Officials also say that at that time, he drove a blue truck. During Thursday's press conference on July 27, 2023, Sheriff Ninhuis kept reiterating that Crum was not on the investigators' radar until the past few years. Records showed that Crum has a significant history of convictions for violent crimes. The sheriff said Crum had been arrested in the early 1980s for armed robbery in Hillsborough County. In 1985, he was charged with kidnapping, assault, and false imprisonment in Hillsborough County. He was arrested by Tampa police in 1987 for carrying a concealed weapon. In 1988, he was caught again carrying a concealed weapon, and was charged with aggravated assault. In 1998, he was arrested for domestic violence in Hernando County 3 times. In 2001, he was arrested for a violation of probation in Hillsborough County. He was arrested a few years later for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in Hernando County. In 2015, he was arrested in Pasco County for aggravated assault on a child under the age of 12. Sheriff Ninheis stated, "He is a bad individual who enjoyed violence." Crum is already serving 2 life sentences for the assault and kidnapping case out of Pasco County that was prosecuted around 2015. He is currently in the Hernando County Jail, and Judge Kurt E. Hitzman ordered him to be held without bond and appointed a public defender to represent him. Communities in Pasco and Hernando counties were on edge after Jennifer Odom's kidnapping and slaying back then. They shared their thoughts and feelings after the news of the arrest was announced. Jeannie Cameron, the general manager at Papa Joe's Italian restaurant in Brooksville, said she and others in the community remember hearing about her disappearance all too well. So, we all remember hearing about her disappearance, Jennifer's, and about the blue truck, and everybody was on alert, looking. I think the bottom line was finding out who did it and getting him off the streets so that another family doesn't have to be tormented. Because I really feel like the whole community was tormented until they found out the answer. Joseph Gioratan, the owner of Papa Joe's Italian restaurant, said, "Back then, 30 years ago, as a parent, I was very angry that someone could do something like that to a child and then leave her there in the middle of nowhere." Jessica Ellis said she went to Waitman Middle School with Jennifer and played in the same clarinet section in band class. "I would say we saw each other a lot. We weren't like close friends, but we knew a lot of the same people. We rode the school bus every day, and I just remember her always being nice with me and everyone else that rode her school bus that knew her. You know, a lot of us are parents ourselves now, and the fact that anyone would do this to a child makes me hold my 5-year-old a lot tighter now." Grief and fear followed in the days, months, and years after Jennifer lost her life. The arrest of Crum is closure for many in the community. Todd Lampe, a man born in 1980 in Mississippi, emerged from a rather mysterious early life, with scant information available about his formative years. Nonetheless, one thing is certain. In 2002, he made a life-altering decision to leave behind his hometown in search of a fresh start. The picturesque coastal town of Hyannis, Massachusetts, became his new haven, a place where he would craft a new chapter in his life. People who had the privilege of knowing Todd often spoke of him in glowing terms. Described as vibrant and charismatic, Todd was a magnetic force within the community, radiating positivity that drew people towards him. His welcoming nature and infectious energy left a lasting impact on those he encountered. He was, without a doubt, a beacon of optimism in the lives of many. Adding to his identity, Todd was also the proud father of 3 beautiful daughters, each born to a different mother. Despite the inherent complexities of co-parenting, Todd remained steadfastly devoted to his daughters. He tirelessly worked to provide for them, channeling his every spare moment into showering them with love and attention. Nevertheless, Todd's life was not an unbroken chain of sunshine and rainbows. He had encountered his fair share of adversity and run-ins with the law. However, Todd was resolute in his refusal to allow his past to define him. He possessed an indomitable spirit and was determined to create a better life, not just for himself, but for his loved ones as well. Tragically, the course of Todd's life took a dark and unforeseen turn on February 27, 2011. At the age of 31, Todd was enjoying a tranquil evening at his Hyannis home. His girlfriend Tyasia was present, as were the mother of one of his daughters, along with her mother, Deborah Cook Warren. Curtis Collins, a close friend of Todd, arrived, and the group gathered for dinner. Following their meal, they settled into the bedroom to watch a basketball game. However, this peaceful evening was violently disrupted by the sudden sound of gunshots that reverberated throughout the house. Todd's screams pierced the air, prompting Tyasia to rush to the bedroom in a state of panic. What she witnessed there would haunt her for the rest of her life. Todd, standing with blood pouring from his body, had been shot. She hurried to his side, but it was tragically too late. The tranquility of the evening had descended into a horrifying nightmare. In a state of panic, Curtis called 911, and soon after, the police and paramedics arrived at the scene. Tragically, they discovered that Todd had already succumbed to his injuries. The investigators meticulously combed every inch of the house, searching for clues to unravel this disturbing mystery. Their examination led them outside the front bedroom window, where they discovered 3 .22 caliber federal ammunition shell casings, indicating that the shots had been fired from outside. But that wasn't all they found. A sweet potato with a flat cut on one end was also discovered, suggesting it had been used as a makeshift silencer to dampen the sound of the gunshots. The detectives couldn't help but draw a connection to a scene from the HBO crime drama series The Wire, where a sweet potato had been used as a silencer to mask a gunshot. As their investigation continued, they found a black Boost mobile cell phone in the grass near the corner of the house, which belonged to Curtis. He explained that he had lost it during the chaotic aftermath of the shooting. A day after this tragic incident, the autopsy report was released, revealing that Todd had suffered 3 gunshot wounds, resulting in fractured ribs and lung injuries, ultimately leading to his untimely demise. This devastating news only fueled the determination of detectives Jason Laborer and Thomas Chevalier to bring justice to Todd and his grieving family. The 2 detectives wasted no time and called Curtis in for questioning. Curtis provided his account of the events leading up to the shooting, admitting to using his blue Sanyo phone. However, during the investigation, suspicions arose when the detectives reviewed Curtis's phone records. The call history on the phone didn't align with the call records obtained from the telecommunications company. Calls made and received by Curtis from a particular number just before and after the shooting were mysteriously missing from his phone's log. It appeared that Curtis had deliberately deleted them, raising further doubts. Their inquiry led the detectives to a man named Tavares Hampton, the individual Curtis had been communicating with before and after the shooting. Hampton was already entangled in legal troubles and was being monitored with a GPS tracking bracelet at the time of the shooting. The detectives delved into the data recorded by the bracelet and uncovered shocking evidence. The GPS data indicated that Hampton had been in close proximity to Todd's home precisely at the time of the shooting. Days after Todd's murder, detectives Jason and Thomas saw an opportunity to extract answers when Hampton was arrested for an unrelated matter. However, their hopes were dashed as Hampton remained tight-lipped and uncooperative. Their persistence finally bore fruit on March 18, 2011, when 2 workers from Sullivan Engineering stumbled upon a firearm in the murky waters of the mill pond in the Marston's Mills section of Barnstable. Upon examining the weapon, the detectives were astonished to find that it contained live rounds of the same caliber as the spent shell casings found at the scene of Todd's shooting. It was almost certainly the murder weapon, but despite this crucial discovery, the investigation into Todd's death appeared to stall. Nevertheless, the detectives remained vigilant, particularly in their pursuit of Hampton. They were convinced that he was involved in some capacity and were unwavering in their commitment to uncovering the truth, regardless of how much time had passed. In 2012, a significant breakthrough occurred in Todd's murder case. Detectives conducted a DNA analysis on a potato found at the crime scene. The results revealed a mixture of 2 human DNA samples, with one belonging to a man. They obtained Hampton's DNA to make a comparison with the sample found on the potato. Unfortunately, progress in the case came to a halt until a stroke of luck in 2016. In October of that year, detectives observed Hampton spotting phlegm in a puddle and quickly collected it for analysis. In 2018, the detectives received even more incriminating evidence against Hampton. GPS tracking data showed that on the night of February 28, 2011, Hampton had made a stop at the mill pond in Marston's Mills, just 23 feet from where the firearm was used in Todd's shooting. Furthermore, the analysis of the phlegm yielded results indicating a high probability that the DNA on the potato found at the crime scene matched Hampton's. With this compelling body of evidence, it was evident that Hampton had a direct connection to the crime. On February 24, 2023, justice finally caught up with Hampton. He was apprehended and charged with murder and assault with a deadly weapon in relation to Todd's death. On the 12th anniversary of Todd's tragic demise, which fell on February 27, 2023, Hampton appeared in court, where he pleaded not guilty. He was ordered to be held without bail, pending his probable cause hearing scheduled for April 5, 2023. A few days later, on March 7, 2023, Curtis, who had been considered a potential accomplice, was also taken into custody and charged with 1 count of murder. He appeared in court the following day and pleaded not guilty to all charges. The community held on to a glimmer of hope that justice would finally be served for Todd, bringing closure to a case that had spanned over a decade. The road to justice had been long and arduous, but the persistence of detectives and the strength of evidence had brought them closer to unveiling the truth behind Todd's tragic death. On the 18th, 1981, 2 delivery men aged 9-14 discovered Rachel Zendos's body in Camaro, California's carport. They made this discovery while making deliveries. Rachel lived with 2 young daughters aged 1 and 2 in her home, which was located nearby the carport she used as storage. Rachel attended college. An autopsy determined that she was attacked and strangled to death. Investigators discovered that Rachel went out for dinner and hired 2 babysitters when returning from an evening out, then drove the group home. Officials from Rachel's home believe she took her life when she returned to her vehicle and attempted to exit it. Detectives of the sheriff's office conducted their own investigation until all leads had been exhausted, eventually closing it 11 months after Rachel died. Although an identical crime had occurred near her residence on 11 December 1981. Lisa Gandek, 21, an Oxnard retail worker located 10 miles west of Camaro, was at Port Hueneme Naval Base nightclub after enjoying an evening with friends. Lisa was taken home to her residence around 11:30 a.m. At around 3 o'clock a.m., Lisa's neighbor called police to report a fire at Lisa's residence. Oxnard Fire Department extinguished any lingering flames before searching the scene for any victims of any sort. Lisa was found strangled, and her body found in the tub, along with those of Rachel, also found strangled. Each case was investigated separately until 2002, when new information surfaced about each case at once. The suspect DNA collected at Rachel's murder scene was submitted to the FBI's DNA index system, that is combined. However, this search proved fruitless. However, in 2004, investigators working Lisa's murder case informed the Ventura County Sheriff's Office that DNA tests indicated a possible connection between both cases, although their results weren't what was anticipated. As no suspect was identified through DNA tests, the investigation was closed in September. In December, however, Ventura County Cold Case Unit initiated a line investigation using genetic genealogy, an increasingly popular technique to identify potential biological relatives through advanced DNA tests. New leads provided new leads with further DNA evidence which identified Tony Garcia of Oxnard as being responsible for Rachel Zenas and Lisa Gandek's deaths, with him being arrested on February 7th at Nard, California. Sheriff Freihoff noted that Garcia, born in Roswell, New Mexico, and stationed at Point Mugu near Oxnard. After being discharged in 1980, he remained in the region teaching karate classes, as well as taking lessons himself for some time after being called up again for duty in 1983. At present, the suspect has remained unknown for more than 4 decades. Sheriff's Office Chief Benitez confirmed they identified some commonalities between victim and suspect, yet refused to discuss specifics on what those were. Benitez indicated that Lisa traveled from Connecticut for an initially 2-day visit, with the intention of visiting an acquaintance from the U.S. Navy. Ultimately, she decided to relocate there shortly before her death, although it is unknown whether Garcia was one of them, and therefore whether Lisa knew him prior to visiting Oxnard. Ventura County District Attorney Eric Nasarenko announced on March 8 that, after nearly 4 years, justice has finally come for Rachel Zass and Lisa Gandek and their families, As the case illustrates, charges can be filed at any time without regard to statute of limitations. Ventura County Sheriff's Office, District Attorney's Bureau of Investigation, and Oxnard Police Department are to be thanked for continuing the search for Rachel or Lisa's killer. Investigators are currently exploring whether Garcia could have committed further crimes, and they've appealed for public support in this matter.